Hello and welcome to First Post America, your home for the biggest stories shaping the US and the world. I'm Kerry Johnston, live from the First Post studios. Our top story on the show today. After Venezuela, President Trump now appears to turn his attention to Mexico to target drug cartels. Also on the program, Denmark dares Donald Trump, warning it will shoot any foreign forces invading Greenland. Beijing trolls Washington with an AI rap, mocking what it says is US panic over China's unstoppable economic and technological rise. And as California plans to tax its billionaires, tech titans are divided over whether they should pay up or flee the state. We begin with a warning that refuses to go away. President Donald Trump is once again talking about Mexico. He's threatened action before, but this time the tone is sharper. After a military operation in Venezuela, Trump is now reviving his threat against Mexican drug cartels. In an interview with Fox News, he said, "We are going to start now hitting land. With regard to the cartels are running Mexico." Well, Trump claims the US has already stopped drug trafficking by boat. He claims that 97% of drugs coming by water have been intercepted. That brings us to his next target, land. He says Mexico has lost control and that criminal groups have become too powerful and that watching this happen is very sad. But hitting cartels on land would mean US military action inside Mexico, and that would be a major escalation, one that Washington has discussed before. Trump's recent remarks come days after US military intervention in Venezuela and the capture of its leader, Nicolas Maduro. Well, that operation has sent shockwaves across Latin America, with many countries now fearing a return to open US interventionism, the kind the region knows all too well. Trump himself has named a few countries also in his sights, like Cuba, Colombia and Iran, and Mexico is no stranger to that list.
And by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it, but unfortunately the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
Well, after the Venezuela operation, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum made her position clear, saying that the Americas do not belong to any one power.
Mexico's position against any form of intervention is firm, clear, and historic. Following recent events in Venezuela, where the United States government carried out a direct intervention that resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, as well as the loss of human lives, Mexico reaffirms a principle that is not new and admits no ambiguities. We categorically reject intervention in the internal affairs of other countries.
For Mexico, this is a red line, but there has been cooperation with the US. Sheinbaum's administration has become more aggressive towards drug cartels than her predecessor. There have been more arrests, drug seizures and extraditions. And Mexico has agreed to receive more deportees from other countries. Former ambassadors and experts say this kind of cooperation should serve to discourage any US military action. Sheinbaum is also a popular, legitimately elected president. Mexico is America's largest trading partner, and 40 million people of Mexican origin live in the United States. Yet Trump and his team have flirted with the idea of attacking cartels in Mexico on many occasions. The language changes, but the pressure remains. Sheinbaum says the proposal of US military intervention keeps coming up in her conversations with Trump.
These are ways of speaking of President Trump. I don't believe in invasion. I don't even think it's something they're taking very seriously. But we express it at every. He said it several times in the calls we've had. There have been almost 14 calls. If I remember correctly, he has insisted on several occasions that the United States military be able to enter Mexico, and we have said no very firmly. First, because we defend our sovereignty, and second, because it is not necessary.
Analysts believe these threats are part of Trump's negotiation style, especially when the US-Mexico-Canada trade deal is still up for revision. So, this is not a new fight, it's an old one, resurfacing with more urgency. And after Venezuela, the question is unavoidable. Is this just leverage, or is it a warning of what could come next? We'll be watching closely. Tensions between Denmark and the US continue to deepen. The flashpoint remains Greenland, with Denmark issuing its strongest warning yet. It says its soldiers would open fire immediately if any foreign force tried to invade Danish territory, including Greenland. The warning comes as Donald Trump continues to push the idea of acquiring the Arctic territory. Denmark's defense ministry says that under a 1952 military directive, Danish soldiers are allowed to act without waiting for orders if the country or its territories are attacked. Well, the rule dates back to the Cold War. It was introduced after Nazi Germany invaded Denmark in 1940, when communications broke down and commanders could not give instructions from afar. Well, that rule is still in force today. It essentially means Denmark's troops do not need orders to respond to an invasion. Greenland is autonomous, but its defense remains Denmark's responsibility. Apart from using force to seize Greenland, Washington is also mulling over other options. One idea being discussed is direct cash payments to Greenlanders. A Reuters report says the US could provide payouts of up to $100,000 per person. For context, Greenland's population is about 57,000. The plan is being seen as a way to bypass governments and appeal directly to residents. But many islanders see this idea in itself as insulting, reducing them to a mere price tag. It also ignores years of debate over independence and self-rule. Greenland's leadership has rejected the idea outright. It says the island is not for sale. Meanwhile, Europe is scrambling to contain the crisis between the two NATO allies. Well, this is what Kaja Kallas, the EU foreign policy chief, had to say on the matter.
Of course, the messages that we hear regarding Greenland are extremely concerning, and we have had discussions also among the Europeans. If this is a real threat, and if it is, then what would be our response? So, as Denmark has been a good ally for United States, and all these statements are not really helping the stability of the world, I would say.
Well, French President Emmanuel Macron went further. He warned that the United States appeared to be turning away from its allies. He said global stability is at risk when the idea of a Greenland invasion is even on the agenda. What added fuel to the fire was US Vice President J.D. Vance's response. He urged Europe to take Trump seriously on Greenland and further accused Denmark and other NATO allies of failing to protect the territory.
Well, first of all, Secretary Rubio, I believe, is meeting with the leaders of Denmark and Greenland next week, I want to say it is, but maybe it's the week after that. We'll continue to deliver some of these messages in private, some of them in public, but I guess my advice to European leaders and anybody else would be to take the President of the United States seriously. What has he said about Greenland? Set to the side the crazy overreactions that I've seen from the press and from certain people in Europe. What has the President said? Number one, Greenland is really important, not just to America's missile defense, but to the world's missile defense. Number two, we know that there are hostile adversaries that have shown a lot of interest in that particular territory, that particular slice of the world. So what we're asking our European friends to do is to take the security of that landmass more seriously, because if they're not, the United States is going to have to do something about it. What that is, I'll leave that to the President.
So Vance's message was clear: if Europe doesn't act, America will. So here's how things stand right now. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to meet Danish and Greenlandic officials next week. Diplomacy, invasion, cash handouts, and even the potential purchase are all on the table. The question remains then, is this just a negotiation tactic, or is it the most serious crisis that NATO has faced in decades? Well, still to come on the programme, what makes a faultless month? Well, next month is going viral online, described as the perfect February. Find out why. But first, the Chinese embassy in Washington has chosen satire over solemn diplomacy. This week, it released a 1-minute AI-generated rap video mocking what it calls America's double standards towards China's economic and technological rise. In the video, the US is portrayed as a nervous, suit-clad bald eagle in a TV news studio. Rapping into a microphone, the eagle complains of unfair treatment. The lyrics say, "When we lead, it's progress wow. When China leads, it's overcapacity now." Well, China, meanwhile, appears as a calm and industrious panda. The panda codes software, oversees electric vehicle factories and installs solar panels. He watches rocket launches, plays music and stands before dancing humanoid robots. When the video ends, the closing line is blunt. The real China shock can't stand them to rise. Well, now, the timing of this AI-generated video is deliberate. US-China relations remain tense with disputes over trade, technology controls, supply chains and Taiwan. Washington has accused Beijing of flooding global markets with subsidized goods, and electric vehicles, batteries and solar equipment are at the center of Washington's concern. US officials warn that weak demand at home could lead to global overcapacity. In fact, the United States has also tightened export controls on advanced semiconductors. Washington cites national security and the risk of military use. Beijing, however, rejects that argument, saying the measures are meant to slow or contain China's rise. And that claim takes center stage in the embassy's video, titled "Breaking News, Another China Shock." Shared on X, it replaces diplomatic language with animation, internet humor, and a fast hip-hop beat. Well, now the phrase China shock does carry history. It first described the flood of low-cost Chinese goods after China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. That wave reshaped global supply chains and severely challenged manufacturing communities in the US and Europe. Well, now, policymakers warn of a China shock 2.0. This time, the fear is not cheap labor, it's China's push into high-value sectors like EVs, clean energy, AI, and advanced manufacturing. At the June hearing, US officials argue that the strategy is deliberate. They say China's trade surplus has doubled in 5 years, and that it's weakening Western industrial competitiveness. The embassy's video is a clear response. Instead of a formal rebuttal, Beijing chose humor and spectacle, a style more familiar to TikTok than traditional politics. Even online reaction was swift and divided. Some praised it as clever trolling and being digitally savvy. Others, though, saw it as proof of a more openly combative rivalry. Either way, the broader picture remains fragile. The trade war intensified after President Donald Trump began his second term. Tensions eased slightly after his meeting with Xi Jinping in Busan last October, but no major trade deal followed. What is clear is that the rivalry is changing. Tariffs and chip control still matter, and so does narrative power. And in this context, well, diplomacy is no longer confined to conference rooms. It's unfolding on timelines, in memes and viral videos. And before you know it, the next shock may arrive within a beat. Moving on to a standoff between some of the world's wealthiest people and one of America's richest states. California's key labor union wants to tax its billionaires, and the billionaires themselves are having to face whether to stay or to leave. Well, here's the proposal. Any California resident worth more than $1 billion would pay a one-time tax amounting to 5% of their assets. The money would fund education, food assistance and healthcare. But this is not a normal tax. It comes with a hefty catch. The tax would apply retrospectively to anyone who is a California resident as of January the 1st this year, even if they should leave the state now. Well, that would give the state's 200 to 250 billionaires no time to escape. And tax lawyers say that makes it almost impossible to avoid paying. Well, the plan could be put to voters in November. It's being pushed by the powerful union, the SEIU, United Healthcare Workers West. And if it passes, billionaires would get 5 years to pay up. The reaction in Silicon Valley, well, it has been dramatic. Some have already packed their bags regardless. Google co-founder Larry Page has left, along with several of his assets. Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel has suggested that he's leaving. And Donald Trump's AI and crypto czar David Sachs says he's left the state too. Florida and Texas are the preferred destinations, but not everyone is running. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is staying. His net worth is close to $159 billion. He says he's perfectly fine with the tax. That puts him in sharp contrast with his peers, because for him, the bill would be massive. He would end up paying roughly $7 billion in taxes. If Larry Page decided to stay, he would owe around $13 billion. And Peter Thiel over $1 billion. And this is not California's first billionaire breakup. Elon Musk left in 2020 and moved to Texas, saving millions in taxes. He shifted company headquarters too. Then in 2024, he announced that SpaceX would move to Texas as well. He described a California law protecting transgender children as the final straw. And there's another example. Palantir's Joe Lonsdale moved to Austin in 2020, and Oracle's Larry Ellison shifted headquarters to Texas in 2020 before eyeing Nashville with its significantly lower taxes. The California proposal is still in its early stages. It needs nearly 875,000 signatures just to reach the ballot. And even if voters approve it, Governor Gavin Newsom must sign it. Well, he's already said he opposes a wealth tax, and his administration is actively working to defeat it. Legal challenges are also expected. Tax attorneys say lawsuits are almost guaranteed. Well, California is creating wealth at record speed. Artificial intelligence alone produced an estimated 50 new billionaires last year. And tax advisors say they're already seeing a flood of calls. Meanwhile, tech founders are asking one question: how fast can I move before my next big payday? So, this is no longer just a tax debate. It's a referendum on California's economic future. Can the state tax extreme wealth without driving it away? Or will the next generation of tech fortunes be built elsewhere? Well, the answer may decide not just who pays, but where power, innovation and money finally choose to live. Now, if your social media feed has recently been flooded with calendar screenshots, oddly soothing grids, and people declaring February as their favorite month of all time, don't worry, you haven't accidentally joined a productivity cult. The internet is buzzing over a phenomenon called perfect February. No surprise holidays, no long weekends, and no once-in-a-lifetime event. Just a rare moment in 2026 when the calendar lines up so neatly that it's sending social media into a mild state of joy. And the internet can't stop celebrating. Our report now explains what it's all about.
If you have been doom scrolling X lately and suddenly found yourself oddly soothed by screenshots of calendars, don't worry, you are not alone. The internet has collectively decided that February 2026 is perfect. And no, this has nothing to do with surprise holidays, long weekends, or the universe finally giving us a break. Welcome to perfect February, the most organized month the internet has seen in years. So what exactly is perfect February? In 2026, February pulls off a rare little calendar flex. It begins neatly on a Sunday and ends tidily on a Saturday. No awkward spillover days, no half-empty rows, just a clean, symmetrical 4-week layout with 4 Sundays, 4 Mondays, and 4 of every other weekday. Social media users have been sharing screenshots of their February calendars like proud parents. One user called it the month where everything will be perfectly balanced. Another called it the most satisfying calendar yet. So if my New Year's diet fails in January, it's okay, because February is the perfect month to start, one joked. One user simply called it fascinating. While this may feel brand new, the perfect February hype has been quietly loading for over a decade. The phenomenon first went viral back in 2015, when ex-user Smarter Everyday posted a screenshot of February 2015's perfectly aligned calendar. He then shared it again towards the end in December 2025. The post spread like wildfire, delighting fellow calendar nerds and planting a seed that's now blooming spectacularly online. Fast forward 11 years, and the prophecy has come true. Is it really perfect everywhere? Well, it depends where you live. Around 67 countries, representing over 4 billion people, consider Sunday the first day of the week. Meanwhile, roughly 160 countries, including much of Europe, start the week on Monday. A handful of others, such as Afghanistan, Iran, and Somalia, begin on Saturday. For these regions, February is still tidy, but perhaps not internet perfect, according to time and date. February is already the shortest month of the year, and in 2026, it wastes absolutely no space. No dangling dates, no uneven rows. For anyone who tracks life visually, planners, list makers, bullet journal devotees, this alignment feels strangely calming. It's also rare. For a perfect February to happen, the month must fall in a non-leap year and begin on the first day of the local week. That combination doesn't come around often, which only adds to the hype. Importantly, this viral moment has nothing to do with politics, pandemics, or public holidays. It's just vibes. Immaculate, symmetrical vibes.
That's it on the show today, but you can join us again on Monday. Thanks for watching. The world doesn't fit in boxes, so why should your news? From battlefields to negotiation tables, from internet outrage to real-world injustice. The conversations everyone is having and the ones they're avoiding. It's the same show, but this new year, First Post America gets a new look. I'm Kerry Johnston, and this is First Post America.